Rajiv ji was very kindly referred to me as a friend, but I actually see him as a guru. Um and for most of us, for actually most people, the two most important influences on us are our parents and our gurus. Parents we don't choose, or perhaps our soul chooses. Gurus we ourselves choose, those we choose to get influence from, those whose books we read. They are both very important.
Namaste. Am I audible? Okay. I want to thank the organizers who worked very hard for the last several months to put my tour together. And of course, Amish Tripathi, a dear friend who's the director here. And here is Amish. Please give him a hand. I'm honored to be welcoming you, Amish, here. We're very good friends for a long time, and so it's wonderful.
Namaste, everyone. Rajiv ji was very kindly referred to me as a friend, but I actually see him as a guru. And for most of us, for actually most people, the two most important influences on us are our parents and our gurus. Parents we don't choose, or perhaps our soul chooses. Gurus we ourselves choose, those we choose to get influence from, those whose books we read. They are both very important. I remember I'd read this book many years ago by a lady called Wendy Doniger. I'm sure you must be aware. And I'd read a description of Lord Ganesh, and I swear I was extreme. And I'm a liberal person. I was extremely offended, and I had spoken to my parents at that time. And my parents had told me something very wise, that you have answers to this because you have been taught everything that parents should teach, which is the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Puranas. That's something that I want to leave with you guys as parents. Our primary duty. I have nothing against other religious groups who teach their religions. That's what they should be doing. How much we teach of our own culture to our own children. We don't have to go up to the Vedas and Upanishads. This is too difficult. But at least the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Purana should be taught. It makes us aware of who we are. But that was the benefit that I was given through my parents. But it's not enough, because it doesn't help you explain things which you don't understand. There are some of us who are storytellers, who are public intellectuals, but we are not scholars, right? So we don't understand what's going on in Western universities. So when a theory comes out that an 8-year-old child can be taken away from their parents because the child himself or herself chooses that they are going through gender dysphoria or something, you simply cannot fathom and wrap your head around what theory would have made this possible. If there are things that where there are Hindu Indology schools or this thing, and I've read many of their books. Almost everyone who's running those Indology departments in American universities seems to hate Hinduism, which I wonder then what are they doing? I mean, you don't have Islamic studies in Western universities by those who hate Islam. You don't have Buddhist studies by those who hate Buddhism. And I find it very surprising. But we are not scholars, so we don't understand what's going on, which is why we need gurus like Rajiv ji who help us understand what is going on. Because only when we understand what is going on can we actually make our response. That is the first step. And which is why, Rajiv ji, I feel embarrassed when you refer to me as a friend. I actually see you as one of my gurus whose books I read and who I get deeply influenced by. We've met very few times. So actually, your influence on me has been more through my books. And I would encourage all of you, not just pick up Snakes in the Ganga, pick up all his books. They're all available on Amazon. Read them, understand what is going on. Because remember, you may not be interested in that scholarship, but that scholarship is interested in you, and it'll start impacting your life a few years later, a decade and a half later. So you have to understand what is going on. people like Rajiv ji, gurus like Rajiv ji help us understand. Thank you.
First thing I want to tell you is, don't let the size of the book scare you. It's not meant for weightlifting. The book is written at 3 levels. You'll get 99% of the value and the benefit of the book in a few hours. Read the introduction, read the conclusion chapter, and in between, every chapter has a 1-page summary. It's written such that if you go on a long flight for a few hours, you can, within 100 pages, you can get the idea, the whole thesis of the book, which I will explain to you. You will get the whole thesis of the book. What you will not get, for which you need to read further, and you read only selectively those things that you want to read further, what you will not get will be the proof. Because the proof, the evidence, the quotations, where things happened, who did what, why, who funded this and who funded that is given in the details. So if you want to know what is the thesis, and you want to say, let's me trust Rajiv at face value, what he says must be true, so then you only need to do the level 1 reading. And for 99% of people, that's more than enough. If they were to do it and act on it, it would be so great. Those of you who want to then go and take it up as a fight and make it your intellectual Kshatriya cause, will run into situations where people on the opposite side will say, prove it, I don't believe it, and they'll give you some argument. And then you can go back to the book on that particular chapter and read more. The third level is about 300 pages of endnotes and bibliography at the end, which is for scholars who want to do a PhD, who want to do a dissertation. They need to do all that. So it's written at 3 levels. And it's written as one book rather than separately, so that, everyone who has a copy of this is very confident that I have the backup. The backup is also right here inside the same book. That's why it's a large book, but you need to read about 100 pages, and I think that is all I'm looking for most people. Now, I want to talk about the tectonic forces that are threatening India, that are undermining India, and they are so different than the first Breaking India book exposed that this is now called Breaking India 2.0. I want to talk about not only what the threats are, but how to confront them and how to counter them, because that's very important. We are not explaining and interpreting the threat so you can get scared. We are explaining so you can get empowered. So the first, out of these 6 or 7 major categories, the first is ideological. There's a whole new ideology. Most of you, when you think of Marxism, you never connect it with the United States. It's the most capitalist, anti-Marxist kind of country that you think. But let me tell you, Marxism has been reincarnated in a whole new form, which is made in America. What has happened is, in traditional Marxism, you have the theory that people are oppressors and oppressed. And this is economic theory of oppression. And Marxism wants to build an anti-narrative, a counter to the narrative of the oppressor, and wants to have a revolution and overthrow that. So what has now happened is that instead of talking about economic oppression, Marxism has been expanded to include race, so blacks being oppressed, LGBTQ being oppressed by those who are straight, Muslims being oppressed by other religions, and this is all United States happening. And very recently, Dalits being included as oppressed people. So this coalition of oppressed uses Marxist idea that we should all stay together and defeat the oppressor. All the structures of society, government is a structure, family is a structure that should be broken, family, and so on. All the structures of society have to be dismantled because the oppressors built them. And because they continue to survive and thrive generation after generation, because they are the keepers of this structure. So it's a very intelligent actually thing. It says that you have inherited certain structures which give you privilege. You are not a bad person as an individual, but you are enjoying those structures. Those structures give you the benefits that I don't have as an oppressed person. That's kind of the argument. So the logic is that meritocracy, what we call meritocracy, may the best person win, that's meritocracy, on which the United States became such a great nation. The success of the United States is because of the meritocracy, and hence it became the leader of innovation in the world. Meritocracy is being attacked because the very idea of meritocracy is a conspiracy of the oppressors to keep us oppressed. So we can never get ahead under this so-called meritocracy. IITs are being attacked. There's a book by Harvard professor Ajanta Subramaniam that is there are legal cases being fought in Silicon Valley against IIT people on the basis that you are perpetuating a kind of oppression because IIT is an institution of oppression. This is very strange, but this is what's going on. And so the idea is that a quota system is now coming into the United States, which is called equity. Equality means we're all equal, and the best person will become the surgeon or the pilot or the director of something, merit. But equity is not the same thing as equality. Equity says to have equity, the people should be representative of all segments of society, all identities, whether you're good or bad. A certain percentage of people of LGBTQ should become surgeons and pilots, and a certain percentage of blacks and Hispanics and all kind of minorities. A certain percentage of Muslims should become leaders. So it's a quota in every place. A quota in corporate boards, in quota in all the different realms, in quota in academics. I have people who are physicists working with Nobel laureates who are leaving the US universities and going to other countries because they're saying that this business of critical race theory and wokeism and equity is affecting their career. So the paper is not being accepted on merit in a scientific journal, but based on its relevance for social justice. Somebody else whose paper may be inferior, but is constantly quoting social justice and these kind of things, his paper will get in, and your paper won't, because it did not argue on that basis. So America is also losing its meritocracy because of these internal things. Nobody else has attacked America. It's an internal thing, an internal homebred Marxism, which is going in the name of critical race theory and also wokeism. So it's like termites eating from within. Now, it affects Indians and Hindus in the United States, and I would say also in Britain and elsewhere, because, we came there entirely on merit. Nobody gave me any favors. Nobody did anything special to help us out. We came as individuals, fighting against all odds, and entirely based on merit, we became successful. And so now we are being told that this meritocracy is a sham, that you are basically taking advantage of structures that were created by oppressors in the United States. So, one of the arguments of this ideology is that people of color cannot get ahead. They have to dismantle the whole system. They have to have a revolution and break it down. The reason being that people of color the system does not accept the people of color to advance. It is the meritocracy won't allow them to advance. But then the facts are opposite. Indians have the highest per capita income in the United States. Asians in general. In education, we are the best. In jobs, we are the best. So how does this ideology reconcile that people of color like us are doing so well? So what they have come up with to address this is to brand us white adjacent. So I am called white adjacent, which means you are not really white, but you are white adjacent means you are a conspirator with the whites, because your success is the result of supporting the structures, supporting the meritocracy, supporting the system. You're part of the system. That system is an abusive system against oppressed people, and you are supporting the system. So all of you who are doing very well, it's because you are white adjacent. This is a term being used. Now, there is a term called protected classes in US law, civil rights law, and there are criminal consequences. It's a civil law and also criminal law. Protected classes are people who have been designated by the law in the United States as people who deserve special protection. So blacks, and now there are other type of groups. So Muslims are lobbying to become protected class by banning anybody engaged in what they would consider Islamophobia. See, This is very interesting. US Constitution says you cannot discriminate on religion. So why would you ban Islamophobia and not ban Hinduphobia or Christian phobia or Jewish phobia? Phobias against all religions. But there is a bill to criminalize Islamophobia, which says that the US government at the cabinet level should appoint a committee that will be scanning Islamophobia. It will be constituted by Muslims. And anywhere in the world, anyone who is accused of Islamophobia will have US law working against him. So many people around here would be considered Islamophobic and violating US law if that bill passed. So this bill passed the US Congress, which is the lower house, with only one vote against it. So you can imagine the amount of support from the Democratic Party to go put it through, because the Muslim lobby is so strong. And then it was put in the Senate for vote. That's when I got notified of this. So the senator who put it on the floor of the US Senate is a New Jersey senator, Cory Booker, an African American, a decent man, somebody I have funded and supported, and I liked him a lot. But when this happened, I called his office and said, why don't you say that this law should ban Islamophobia and Hinduphobia and Christian phobia, Jewish phobia, all the phobias against all the religions. If you want to have hate speech criminalized, then it should be against any religion should be equal treated. They didn't respond at all. So I went public and wrote a whole lot of online stuff, and this created a big furor. And the bill just froze. It never went through. It just died. Bill died. Otherwise, it would have gone through and it would have become law because Biden would have signed it. So we would have had a... Now, of course, even if it had passed, people would protest and people would challenge it as unconstitutional because it's giving favorite treatment to one religion. Imagine what you are doing by having a law that says don't criticize Islam because it's considered Islamophobic and then it will be a criminal offense. Then what you are doing is in classrooms and in offices and all that, you are creating conflict among people. Because one person will say, hey, you dare not criticize me, but I can make fun of your deities. I can say you are worshipping a monkey and an elephant and you're worshipping phallus and all these kind of horrible things that they say. And we have no defense, but they have a defense. This would not be fair. That's why I criticized it. Not that I want people to attack Islam or any religion. I want people to respect all the faiths, but it should be on an equal. I want to respect your faith, but I demand that you respect mine. That has to be mutual. So you see, as meritocratic people, Indian Americans have a lot to lose because we earned our place on merit. And as family people, they consider family to be an abusive structure because they say that the child learns to be abusive because he copies it from the parents. And so the family structure itself is to be dismantled. This is why this whole LGBTQ and this gender fluidity, you can be male, female, you can cross over back and forth. There is no hard line. And there are some very embarrassing, very interesting videos where a senior person in the US Congress or Senate has been asked, can you define what is a woman? And the person doesn't want to define what's a woman because their belief is that there's no such thing. And so they've come up with terms like birthing bodies, which means a body capable of giving birth. That's called woman. So a very mechanized, demeaning, and the feminists are against it. So now this business of dismantling womanhood in order to dismantle families is created a clash with the conventional, traditional white feminists. They are very upset at this. This business that there is no such thing as women, per se, so a man could have a sex change operation, call himself a woman, and compete in the Olympics and in sports as with women and win medals. There is a swimmer who's now winning all kinds of medals in the United States, and the women swimmers are upset because this is a male who became a female. So you see, this business of dismantling structures is also dismantling the idea of sexuality and gender and family. Not just government and politics and race, but all structures are considered to be abusive because all structures were made by supremacists and oppressors. This is how ridiculous the whole thing is. Now, how is this taking shape in the form of forces on the ground. This is ideology. But let's move on beyond ideology. So I was in Canada having a debate with Khalistan people in the Gurdwara. So somebody invited me and said, do you want to have a conversation? I said, yeah, I'll address them. If they're civil people, I'll talk to them. I'll give them my point of view. So I was heckled and booed and all that. So I walked out. I said, this is not what I wanted. I wanted a debate. So the leader was he said, come, I'll scold them and they have to sit and listen to you. So I basically said, listen, they said they were shouting, that Punjab is being destroyed by RSS and Brahmins. So I said, how many of you have seen RSS people in Punjab? And too many RSS Brahmins. How many Brahmins in Punjab? Are they running the show? How many of them in the government? Do you know who is destroying your Punjab villages? And they started looking at me like that. I said, drugs. It's not brought by some RSS people or Brahmins. Who brings the drugs? That's who's destroying. And your own political leaders, your own leaders in the Gurdwaras are in bed with these drug dealers because they get money out of it. They are part of the drug crime, and that is what's destroying your villages and your youth. And I said, what is the other biggest destruction of Punjab? Again, they were looking around. I said, Christian evangelism. They are converting more Sikhs. There is more conversion in Punjab than anywhere else in India. And they were shocked. And the person standing next to me, he said, yeah, this is true. I said, the World Council of Churches has put out a statement saying that by 2030, we want that more Sikh youth will be going to church than to Gurdwara. That means in the next 7 years, there'll be more Christianity than Sikhism in your own state. And the biggest cathedral in all of Asia is near Jalandhar. People, they all knew these things, but they're not putting it together. So they were stunned, these fellows. Now, I understand, I got into the details of why there is a Khalistan problem in Canada. I don't know about Britain, I haven't done the investigation. But the reason is that the Jats have been designated, the Sikh Jats, which is the Khalistanis are Sikh Jats. They're not the other kind of Sikhs. The Sikhs have got many communities. The Jats, who are very prosperous. They are peasants. They are farmers. The farmers in Punjab, very successful, very rich. The Jats have been designated as a protected class in Canada. Protected class means they're under threat. They are oppressed. And they made the case with politicians and they put it through the system. And so now, if all you have to do from Punjab is apply as somebody under threat, and in the refugee quota, you will get your immigration immediately. The normal quota will take, the normal line to get in Canada takes many years, and you have to go through a lot of procedure. But if you want a fast track to get into Canada, you just have to say that I'm a Jat under threat and produce some story. And you have lawyers. There's a whole kind of a cottage industry of lawyers, immigration lawyers, whose main career is to get Jats into Canada under immigration, charge them a lot of fees. So this is a scam. The whole thing is a scam. And our ministry needs to know these things. That basically, the Canadian government has allowed this to happen because they've created a special quota for immigration for such people. So you see, this ideology I just described has consequences. If you want to understand the deeper causes of what is causing so many of these separatists to be adopted in certain countries, you have to see under what immigration category they came. They came in the category of refugees, most of them, refugees. And so under that category, they have to prove that I'm under threat. And to prove I'm under threat, you have to adopt all this wokeism and all this new kind of Marxism and prove I'm oppressed. That's the connection between the ideology and the ground reality that we are fighting. So there are many examples I won't give, but you can read them in the book. Harvard University has a Suraj Yengde, who's become like the poster boy of a Dalit oppressed person, although he's flying first class and he's very proud that he's got this much and that much donation and contribution and whatnot. So he's living the good life, but he's claiming to be representing the oppressed. He considers himself to be the successor of Ambedkar. That is what he goes around saying. And he's built this Afro-Dalit coalition. Afro-Dalit means African, blacks and Dalits are brothers. And in my first book, Breaking India, the original Breaking India 1.0, I have chapter after chapter on Afro-Dalits. I predicted this 12, 13 years ago, People didn't take it seriously. Read that book under the heading Afro-Dalits and you will see the whole explanation of what is being developed that far back. And now it has become reality. So now what has happened is, because we ignored it, we didn't take it seriously, our people just didn't take it seriously. They thought this is not possible. But it is reality. So now in every black church, in every black institution there is, Dalits are being brought in as sort of the Dalits are black adjacent. We are white adjacent and they are black adjacent. Yeah, you see, there was a time when to get ahead in America, people would fake some kind of whiteness. Like Bobby Jindal was a politician who would try to become white. So I would make fun that these are honorary whites. That's the way to get ahead in the American system. But now, the latest gimmick is that you can become an honorary black and you can get ahead. Because as an honorary black, you consider a protected class and you have all kind of quotas and all kind of privileges. So this coalition is becoming very strong. The left is providing the intellectual gravitas, the intellectual rigor, dignity, decency, ability to talk nice, slick, quote, academic language. They give it respect because they have all this theory. That's the left. And the Islamists are being used as the ground forces who can create Gadar, who can go or become rowdy and do all sorts of things. Blacks have been appropriated as useful ground forces to do all the heavy lifting and fighting. And then the LGBTQ people have been recruited. And now the Dalits. So the left is providing a kind of a coalition. They create a coalition of all these grievance. These are called grievances, grievance people. Anyone with grievance can make a case that people like me are biased, prejudiced by other people. And therefore we should have a quota. So sometimes I'm thinking I should say that men who are bald with glasses are grievance people. And if I can get 1 lakh signatures, then, we may have a quota for that. So this is and there is a field of study called grievance studies in the US liberal arts. You have grievance studies where there is a special, one of the categories coming up is called fat studies. So people who are overweight are saying that there is bias against us. There is nothing wrong with being fat. There's no medical proof that being fat is bad and all that. It's all made up bias against us by people who are not fat. So there is a grievous category called fat. And so on. All kind of weird grievances. So this business of turning all kind of people with grievances into oppressed, uniting them and fighting against the system as a system of oppression, that is what is wokeism and critical race theory. And that is why the United States is losing its competitiveness, because it's no longer a meritocracy and it's losing out to China, which is laughing all the way at this kind of a thing. So there are so many examples facing Indians. There are lawsuits against Cisco. Somebody made a lawsuit, Cisco had to defend it, that this Brahmin did not give a promotion to this guy because he's a Dalit. So they had to have a big fight over that legally. And now there are cases where many states and cities and many universities, starting with Harvard, have enacted a policy, official policy, that says that caste is a form of racism. And all the laws of racism in the United States, which, as you can imagine, are very serious laws. The laws against racism are very tough. I mean, you're accused of racism, it's pretty bad. It's like, dowry murder in India. You just have to be accused, and a lot of laws are there. In the United States, racism has those kind of laws. And now to club caste as a form of racism means that somebody just has to go there and file a complaint that, hey, you didn't hire me, or you did this and that because of my caste, because I'm a Dalit. So you've created a lot of boost to this clash, the conflicts that are within society. And so this is, there's a lot written in this book, and even more than what's written in the book we are coming out with. So these are two things I've told you. One is the ideology, and the second is the forces on the ground that are being trained with this kind of ideology and given empowerment to create Gadar against United States, against India. Actually, the book, this Snakes in the Ganga, I started out writing a book called Breaking America. That was my title, because I thought that what I'm discovering is actually breaking America. And a lot of white Americans who were very concerned said, you should get that book out because that's a very important topic. And I'm thinking of getting that book out also. But then I figured, India needs to know about this because this is all happening to India very quickly. And so I turned it into Indian examples just to get it out very quickly. But I will also work on Breaking America. And I'm sure there is also need for a Breaking Britain book, because you have we have snakes in the Thames also, and some crocodiles also. So not just ordinary snakes. So you see, the third area. So we talked about ideology, we talked about the forces. The third area is like, who's funding it? And this is where it's very sad. Indian billionaires have put up chairs in Harvard. There is a Mahindra Humanities Center where they're doing this kind of work. They're bringing all the Khalistanis, they're bringing the Islamists, and they're bringing all these sort of people to create problems for India. And there is a Lakshmi Mittal and Family Center for South Asia Studies. They're doing this. There's a Piramal Center for Public Health. But what are the papers they produced? Papers like, were Dalits given fair treatment during COVID? Was there a prejudice in vaccination, prejudice against Muslims? These are kind of topics, you can produce any knowledge based on who you fund and what the topic is. So there was not a single topic in the Piramal. I'm meeting Ajay Piramal. I've written to him and he said, fine, I'll meet you. So next time in September, I'll meet him and I'll tell him all this. There was not a single paper in any of his presentations, any of the seminars, because he runs the Piramal School, the Center for Public Health at Harvard. Not a single one on the use of Ayurveda as a successful treatment. Not a single paper like that. Not a single paper that India actually pioneered a lot of the vaccination, gave free vaccinations and inexpensive vaccinations to the largest population in the world. And India managed the COVID crisis quite well compared to its considering the level of income of people. I thought that the Piramal Center at Harvard would showcase our success rather than showcasing how we are not doing justice to the Muslims and the Dalits and all that, putting our dirty linen out there. And the same Piramal, the same Mahindra and the same Mittal and many others like them are considered big heroes in India. They're awarded and considered big netas, and not netas in the political sense, but like nationalistic and political leaders. But what is going on? Why is it that in India they're one way and they have a lot of machinery for PR, but when they go to Harvard, they suck up to this kind of a wokeism and give them money? Is it because they want their kids to get in? Is it because they have an inferiority complex? They want to become like white adjacent, maybe they want to become. Maybe this good business deal. Maybe you'll sit on a board or some committee and you rub shoulders with some guys who are big shots and get deals, business deals. Whatever the reason is, I'm only concerned about why the hell are they doing all this, and they should explain. So, then there is one of the worst anti-Hindu, anti-India professors anywhere in the Western world is a man called Hansen. He's written so many books against Hindutva, chauvinism, fascism, this saffron, the India is losing its democracy. He just goes on and on, writing books and papers still all the time he's doing that. And guess what is his official job title? His official job title is Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani Professor at Stanford. What a shameful thing. That's on his card. So I'm not telling you anything. I'm not doing badnami of the Reliance people. This is on the card of this guy. And this is the backdrop on which all these talks happen. And this is at Stanford University. So I don't think Mukesh Ambani could say he doesn't know this. He must know this. So why is it going on is an important issue. The other thing that in the corporate world, they have come up with these indexes. There is an ESG index. There is a DEI index. These kind of indexes are measuring how good a citizen you are as a company, as a business. And there are certain people who give certificates of these indexes. These are the American and some British consulting companies, McKinsey, Pricewaterhouse, all these kind of companies. They're going around looking at, are you having enough social justice? How is your policy on environment? These kind of things. The intention seems very nice, but the criteria being applied is not our Vedic criteria of social justice. It's a very different Marxist and Judeo-Christian type of criteria of social justice. I asked them that if you want to have a score on environmental, behavior, then you should condemn the meat industry, because my idea of environment respects all life. That's part of the environment. It is not that the environment is raw material. We don't want oil to run out, and therefore we don't want to kill the fish because it's bad for the fishing industry. It's not an industrial logic of what constitutes good environmental behavior. It's also all respect for life, all life, plants, and life has its own personhood. The earth is a person. Earth is a person, Bhudevi. And we all the animals, plants, they are persons. So when you apply the Vedic criteria of good behavior for environmentalism, it will be a whole different idea of what is sattvic, what is not sattvic. Nothing in the ESG movement has even one sentence reflecting our values. It's all values that came from somewhere else. Our people are parroting this, and thousands of people are being trained how to go around measuring. They have a certain measurement and they have a criteria. They ask you these questions and figure out on ESG your score is good, not good. If the score is bad, you will not get funding. Banks and international funding institutions are being told this guy's score is bad. In fact, this Adani was into this. They said they'll withdraw certain funding because of his ESG rating gone down. So now they'll be looking at your social behavior. Did you shake hands with the Dalit, or did you go and shake hands with the Brahmin? And did you go to the mosque and do the puja during Eid, the prayer during Eid or not? And so this face recognition and keeping track of all your whereabouts will give you a rating, your score. And so your own consultants will tell you, sir, you better do this, that in front of cameras because our rating will go up, we'll get good funding. So this is now turned the whole ideology that I talked about into indexes to measure how compliant you are with these ideologies. And then these indexes are being administered by consulting companies who are trained in this. And this is taking over the corporate world. And I have friends who mean very well in India, who are smart, intelligent, and their kids are ESG director here or DEI director there. These kind of different alphabetic acronyms representing various indexes. The definition of the index is coming from outside. The training on how you administer the index is coming from outside. The ideological controls are coming from outside. It's a colonial system. It's a system of colonizing you without you even knowing it. By telling you that, this means you are good for environment or good for social justice, so we'll pat your back and we'll fly you to Harvard and you'll be felicitated and you'll get an award and so on. So there are probably the most dangerous of this is something called RFBF. I won't mention details unless somebody asks me a question. I'll tell you. But this is the third thing. This is the industry role as a breaking India force. The fourth is media, and I want time for Q&A, so I want to go through this very quickly. The Harvard Newman Center is training a whole lot of media people, journalists here and there, and this ideology is being taught on India, concerning India. So when you see an article in the BBC, those journalists, and Wall Street Journal and Washington Post, those journalists got their training in this kind of logic. So you cannot just fight one journalist. You have to go up the system. And then in this, aligned with the Harvard training of journalists and the Harvard training of Indian government officials go there for training at the Kennedy School. Aligned with this are Indian billionaires who are funding it. So the journalism training at Harvard, there are a lot of Indians who are also supporting scholarships, fellowships, research grants, and helping them. And some of the Indian billionaires are funding, Azim Premji is a major one. They're funding mechanisms in India, funds where a lot of them put their money together, and then they put money into The Wire and certain type of anti-national type of media outlets. And there is no transparency. On the one hand, on one side, they're funding journalists as individuals to build their career, take them to Harvard, get them a thappa, get them make them a certain type of ideological journalist. And then to build his career, they get him his articles planted in The Wire because they're funding The Wire. So the media company is funded for promoting a certain ideology, and the individual journalists who are promising in this way are funded, and the two are put together. These are the funding mechanisms we've exposed in this book. Now, a major problem with media is the arrival of AI. That's the subject of another book of mine called Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power some years ago. So now you all are suddenly woken up because there's Chat GPT. I've written about it for the last 10 years, that people are controlling this. This is not a level playing field. There is an ideological bias based on how you train the AI. It's like you have a child, whatever syllabus, whatever reading material, whatever curriculum you put out, that will influence the child's mind. So you put him in a madrasa, it will be one way. You put him in a gurukulam or in another way. You put him in a Catholic convent, it will be another way. You put him in a Maoist camp, it will be another way. Same child. So this way, similarly, AI is being trained, and the question is who's training and using what material. So there is something similar to Chat GPT in Arabic being produced by the Saudi government, and another one being produced by the Qatar government. These are for Arabic language people, a large number of people, to get all their knowledge in the future, all their knowledge, all their education, training their media, censoring, deciding who's right, who's wrong, whose tweet will go through, whose will not. The future of ideological brainwashing and filtering and bias and prejudice in the Arabic language is being controlled by these governments. And the same Qatari government, has also Al Jazeera, so you know how sophisticated they are in projecting their soft power. I have been talking for 10 years that we need a similar Vedic-oriented AI basis. And I cannot disclose, but I'm actually, Infinity Foundation just started developing something like this. And Madhuresh ji's friend in Washington is a leader of our movement, and he's doing this for us. So we want to have this. So that's the fourth one is the media. I gave four: the ideology, the foreign forces, the Indian industrialists, and the media. The fifth is the tech giants. And here is a huge story. You all know how this Google and these kind of people are controlling the bias because they decide whom to deplatform and whom to censor. And if I put out during COVID, I put out a video which they flagged as against community standards. And it was a video where I interviewed a good astrologer. And it was against community standards, but who decides? Another one they flagged as against community standards and they withdrew it was when I was interviewing people in the public health in India. They were showcasing how the UP government has been very successful in controlling COVID using traditional methods and other methods, unconventional methods, not consistent with Pfizer drugs. And they flagged it. So, this censorship is going on. And so humans train the algorithm, and then the algorithm is controlling you. So you are controlled no longer by human beings sitting and censoring. Like in the old days, it would be human beings saying, you can't say this, you can't say that, your paper will get in, your proposal will get in, others will not. It's no longer a human being. It's an algorithm looking at everything and making decisions. But somebody trained the algorithm. And that algorithm training is being done with an ideological slant, with an ideological point of view. So we need to have our algorithms. We need to have our algorithm in all the Indian languages and in English, not only to protect the thinking of people in India from all these foreign influences, but we should be projecting our trained algorithm and turn it loose in Pakistan and in Sri Lanka and Nepal and Bangladesh and all the surrounding ASEAN countries and export it everywhere. Just like if Americans can put their algorithms and social media and put them everywhere, and the Arabs are now doing it with the Arabic language. After they've done with Arabic language, they'll translate all their ideology into English and also have their Chat GPT, their version of it in English also. So why aren't we in that war? We should be in that war. That is the future cultural warfare and ideological warfare. It is all this AI-empowered, thing going on. So there's a lot more that we have written. We can talk about it. Then another thing I want to tell you about is the Indian government. I know it's touchy, but I will tell you. Judiciary. Justice Chandrachud actually openly quotes all this critical race theory, critical caste theory, wokeism. He quotes these Harvard people. The same people that we are fighting and criticizing are his mentors. So you have Supreme Court man, Chief Justice quoting all this stuff. Quite an issue. The National Education Policy NEP 2020. I'm sorry to tell you, there are a lot of very good things in it I fully support. But it has opened the doors to bring American liberal arts into India with no checks and balances, and asked and allowed and in fact invited American universities, British universities, foreign universities to set up campuses in India. So all this stuff I'm fighting against Harvard, and maybe you guys, some of you are fighting these things happening in Oxford and various places. Now those very people are going to set up campuses in India. We brought them in by policy. I don't understand why we don't have a Vedic social sciences. I don't understand why we have only Western social sciences in India. In India, social sciences, if you look at the high school textbooks and you look at the UPSC exam, sociology, it's all quoting Western authorities and Western sources. There's no sociology based on Indian knowledge systems. And when I launched my book, Varna Jati Caste, in Delhi, I had a discussion with two eminent Indian social thinkers. One a very eminent professor and the other was an activist. And I asked the question, why don't we have Vedic social sciences? Why isn't there a single book on that? Why isn't there a single dissertation on that? Why isn't there a single project on that? We're doing it in our own way, and we're going to produce a lot of stuff in the next 2 years on this issue. Our point of view, our version of sociology and social thought, we are going to put that out. But why has it not been done? We keep criticizing the other side, but we should have our own. Why not put Arthashastra, Dharma Shastra, the social thought in Mahabharata, the social thought in Gita, all of that into a formal system of pedagogy and education and make them courses and put them everywhere. So we have a lot of such problems to talk about, and I'm happy to take questions on it. The final category, and then I'll stop. I'm not satisfied with Hindu leadership. It's our fault also. I mean, I have gone to gurus, all the big gurus who are known, Sri Sri and Sadguru, and asked them to get involved in all these things. Now, the issue is the gurus want to be goody-goody type, nice, we'll teach you meditation and mantra. But this fighting, sticking your neck out is controversial. You see, it's a lot of fun to support causes that are non-controversial. You will not lose your chance to get a Nobel Prize or some award here and there. Okay, but if you were to stick your neck out, that is what is Kshatriyata. You have to do controversial work. You will create some enemies. People will come running after you. But if you don't do it, then our society is going nowhere. Our children are going to face all these things. So maturity and good proper leadership requires that they have to stand up and take these stands. I would like the Ministry of External Affairs to do these things more aggressively, take on these kind of issues. And I know they're doing a great job. I know I met Jay Shankar and I have a lot of respect for him. He's doing a great job responding to these problems when they come. But we can be proactive and even anticipate and take the battle into the other side. If the Americans can have a whole system of investigating India's religious freedom and producing a report on it and then condemning it, and China has a human rights social justice report every year on United States. And it produces its report in Mandarin and says, if you want to understand, you come and read our Mandarin, we're going to tell you what it is. And it's got straight stuff on what is going wrong. If they can do that, why is India scared to take on the same thing and say, we're going to produce our report on international social justice? I've in fact proposed it to several people for the last 10 years who are in this field. Of the culture and external affairs and all that, and there doesn't seem to be interest. I think people are happy that I'm doing it as an independent person, but they wouldn't want to get themselves involved in it because it's got controversy, and I feel that this is sad. I can only do it so long. I'm 73 years old. I put most of my adult life into this full time, and I think unless we get help from big institutions like the gurus, like the government, we cannot just continue this on our own. I also feel that our Hindu leaders at the grassroots are exceedingly good human beings, very emotional, very good-hearted, but they're not necessarily well-read. They're not necessarily well-informed, and that competence also needs to be raised. So having given you all these challenges, I want to also tell you that the good news is all this will go on and create a lot of havoc and destruction. But my own investigation, which I'm going to write about in the next few books, is that it's very clear that Vedic resources are needed to solve world problems in society. You see, unless the individual using our Adhyatma Vidya techniques, the whole meditation, yoga, all lifestyle, unless the individual is upgraded to a higher level of consciousness, you cannot build a society out of individuals who are flawed. If the individuals have anger and they are mean and they are selfish and they're drugged and all those things, greedy, then those individuals, no matter how many laws or how many social theories you have, that kind of a society will always be destructive. So we may have one destructive society fighting another destructive society. At some point in time, we have to have Vedic solutions articulated very nicely in plain language and made available for the common person. Not chauvinistic, not talking about, past, we had Pushpak Viman and all that, but talking about the future. How do we solve today's problems? The real problems that exist in society. So that is the good news. And that requires all of us to come together, work, and we are doing our bit. We want others to help us. So with that, I will conclude and would welcome any questions or any comments. Thank you so much. Namaste.
How is Breaking India 2.0 different? Because this is called Breaking India 2.0.
So Breaking India 1.0 was forces that were undermining India in the villages, poor people, less educated people, exploiting them, converting them, giving them food and health and converting their religion, Maoists in the villages. So basically it was the forces that were not targeting elites. They were not targeting the government people in Niti Aayog. They were not targeting industrialists and their children. They were not targeting elite universities like Ashoka and so on. They were not doing that. They were targeting the grassroots, the lower echelon of society, if you will. Breaking India 2.0 is targeting India at the top in terms of where the influence is. So this is where Harvard comes in. Harvard would be the wrong center to target the village people and the poor people because nobody there cares about Harvard, nobody knows or heard about it, it's not that great. Oxford would not be the place that is going to influence some village. You need church people and you need Maoist people. But for Breaking India 2.0, since the strategy is to take on the leadership in all segments of society, media and academics and business and government. So if you want to infiltrate the top tier of society, you need Harvard, you need World Economic Forum, you need Oxford, you need ideology that comes out looking very sophisticated, like this ESG and this DEI and all these very sophisticated theories. And they have to be put in a manner that there is prestige. If you go to some fancy high-level party with top-level Indian people anywhere in the world, they are right and left convinced of all this stuff. So it has been marketed to them in a very sophisticated way because that's why Breaking India 2.0 is far more dangerous than 1.0.
Now, recently, Ashley Tellis had said in an interview that Indian elites are vastly different from other country elites. So if you're, in terms of the vision they have for the country. So if you ask the elites of any country, they would want their country to attain, great power status, but not so with Indian elites. So what do you think about this? Are they susceptible to the Breaking India forces that you are talking about?
Well, there is deep inferiority complex. And I'm sorry, I say this to the billionaires. I meet some of them and privately, I don't want to insult them in public, but I say, no matter how many zeros you put at the end of your financial statement, the point is, if you are not able to stand up to the white man or any foreign person, and you in front of him, you are sort of shaking and being scared and all that, then you're really colonized in your mind still. So our people... And I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm talking about, well thought out, well formulated, balanced statements. So, for instance, I would have liked the Piramal Center at Harvard, as I said, to champion India's Ayurveda and India's success in the COVID, because they had so many seminars and conferences on COVID, and they only looked at negative things. And similarly, when the Mahindra Center, which is run by one of the world's most prominent postmodernists, he used to be in Oxford, and they brought him to the United States in Harvard. So why not champion India's liberal arts, which have a tremendous response to postmodernism? In fact, postmodernism borrowed so many things from Indian thought and then twisted it. So why not have seminars and conferences which bring that out? So many liberal American thinkers were influenced by India. Why not have that? So I find that Indian elite, certainly the corporate elite, are scared to do all this. The gurus don't want to get into controversy. They're all looking for some international accolades, which again is a sign of inferiority complex, if you will. So media are all kind of already, for a while, they've been sold out and they're getting so much funding. By the way, we've started a project. Those of you who have seen my YouTube series with a man called Dr. Joel Finkelstein. He's at Princeton University. He's involved in U.S. national security, and he searches the dark web. He uses AI to come up with who funds what, where do all these influences come on in social media. And he started studying through that he started studying who was behind Leicester's Hindu-Muslim riots, and who is behind some of the violence against Hindu temples in various parts of the world, and who is behind the Khalistanis. And it's a very interesting thing. This is the sort of thing we ought to be doing. But he's doing it. He's a friend. So he's sharing all this with me, and we're going to produce some joint work on this. So the finger goes to a lot of elites who are indirectly supporting these things. They are not just neutral, but they are, sometimes you see a father who made all his money, billionaire, maybe good Bharatiya, very nice Hindu, and he has all the practices and all, but his son, daughter don't want anything to do with it, and they're gone the other way, and so they're spending this money. That's a tragedy.
You say that English language seen as a marker of privilege, and the best mode of knowledge acquisition in India has been a contributing factor in creating this elitist mindset and an idealization of West.
Yeah, I call it the English caste system. This is the English caste system. It's the most active caste system. Nobody is getting a job because he knows Sanskrit in some top job in India. And nobody is losing his job because they say, okay, you don't know Sanskrit, so you are out. And yet they keep blaming that these Brahmins controlled Sanskrit and therefore they were oppressing. But today, who cares? If they control Sanskrit, unfortunately, I wish it were the case that Sanskrit were that important, but unfortunately it is not. It is English language. It is not only how much you know, but how you speak, what's your accent, what's your idiom, what books you've read, who you can quote, where all you've been, what all you've stamped on your passport. All of that kind of is the Indians' reference point is the Anglo-American Western world. And that is the gold standard.
You specifically talk about Harvard. Is this problem limited to this one institution, and why should we be paying so much attention to Harvard?
So, in each of my books, I picked up one big issue, and I always targeted the biggest. The reason you target the biggest is that if you can show that I can stand my ground and they have no rebuttal, if I can show that with all their billions of dollars and challenges, and by the way, this book was launched at Harvard University in their faculty club, which is a very prestigious book. And in one of the panel discussions, where I was talking about how the Kennedy School brainwashes Indian IS people, they come and they teach them all this kind of stuff, anti-India stuff, and Indian government is funding it. In one of the panel discussions, one man stood up and said, I'm an IS officer, I'm here at Harvard, at the Kennedy School, and whatever he's saying is true. And he says that in class, since I'm writing essays and articles, my contributions are pro-India. I'm never acknowledged when I raise my hand. Those who are saying anti-India things, they are given a lot of space. And even the articles selected to be featured are all anti-India. So this is what's going on. And, so Harvard is the nest of snakes. And from there, the snakes are being produced and they are being sent all over. We have shown a whole pipeline of Indian billionaires going there, funding it. and then Indian billionaires and other people funding institutions in India like Ashoka, like Kriya University in the south. There are a whole lot, 15 or 20 of these that we've named, some media companies, and how they are all aligned. Harvard provides the legitimacy, the gravitas, the depth of research and citations and all that. And they provide also the floor where important people can be brought in and given tappa and endorsed. And and in India, they can distribute all this stuff. So there's an end-to-end network from Harvard at one end. World Economic Forum is very much a Harvard product. I don't know if you know this, but Klaus Schwab, the founder and head of World Economic Forum, was one of the top students of Henry Kissinger at Harvard. And when Kissinger was a professor there at the Kennedy School, and this guy was his ace student, they came up with the idea that to promote these ideologies that they want, there should be something which is outside any government jurisdiction. It should be, nobody knows who they are, where they get their money from, what they do, nobody can tell them. So in Switzerland, they started World Economic Forum. So you see, all this is Harvard production. And so it's not only Harvard. I told you that this Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani chair is at Stanford. We know people at Brown University, Yale University, Columbia University, in the UK also. And in France, there is a whole lot of such people. France is full of such people. But I wanted to pick one and really go deep into it and challenge them. And this is what I did in each book. And this also inspires more people to come out and write similar things about other universities.
Now, this is Breaking India 2.0. So do you think Breaking India 2.0 swung into action given the progress that India has been making economically? I mean, just a decade ago, it was part of Fragile Five, and now it's the 5th largest economy in the world. Its global image has improved considerably. It has more assertiveness in some of its decisions that it takes. So should we be looking at this through the lens of India's geopolitical rise?
Yes, I think there are many factors. There are old grievances, and there are old agendas. People want to convert Hindus. That's an agenda. China wants to compromise and undermine India's success. That's an agenda. There are Indians who want to overthrow India. I mean, we've had communists and Marxists, and we have India's own Islamists and India's own Maoist movements. There are so many Indians who proudly say anti-India things, proudly, very openly. I mean, I was very surprised at some people that I thought very highly of, very openly talking about their identity has nothing to do with Bharat. They just don't relate to it. And they believe in this British idea that India was just a land of princes and the British made a nation, as if there was no ancient civilization at all. And the British had to, through English language and railways and cricket, they gave us a nation. And this is the Shashi Tharoor theory of India. And so this is true. So we have not pushed back enough on this. And the strange thing is, you attack China anywhere, even in the United States, and there will be Chinese Americans who stand up and take whatever heat is required, but they'll hit back. They will push back. We don't have enough Indians doing it because the few who do it are alone, and therefore they become easy targets. And the authorities don't support them, don't give them the backing they needed. So, it's not about money and all that. It's about moral support. So that's why I'm so glad that my friend is invited me here to Nehru Center, and I feel very honored that Indian government is helping us.
All that you say is correct, but the punch is not there. The punch is, how do you get to the Mukesh Ambanis of the world? How do you get to the Mittal? I mean, I got a video where Mittal is very, very pro-Hindu in his talks. So where is the punch?
Now, as far as where is the punch, because I'm not convincing Mukesh Ambani, I would ask you, where is your punch in convincing Mukesh Ambani? Why should I do all the work? Why not you? Wait, let me. Why is the Indian government not doing it? So I'll just tell you without naming. I've talked to a top person in the Indian government about this is happening against India. Why don't you talk to these billionaires and let's bring them together? We'll have a conference or a discussion and tell them not to fund such things. Because the government has some clout. And the off-the-record answer was, कि अरे उनका इलेक्शन लड़ने के लिए उनका पैसा भी तो चाहिए, means we also need their funding because they fund our election. That is the reality. The democracy runs on money. The democracy runs on campaign contributions. These people are very smart. They give a lot of money. They give money to this party. They give money to that party. It's not like they're always giving money to just one party. So you do want them to be in your good books. They also control media. The Indian media is controlled by its wealthy industrialists. So to the extent media is very powerful, they also control media. So this is not a punch that an individual like me should do or is expected to do. I have given enough punches because as a result of my work, there are tens of thousands of people, including some sitting here, who've been awakened and who are now standing up and creating their own activism. So there are different kinds of punches. There is the punch of a scholar and author, which I have to give, and I'm doing my best. I'm 73, and I have 20 more books I will write. I tell you that. But there are punches that the government has to give. There are punches that the gurus have to stand up. So there are many different kinds of punches which have to come from different people. Thank you.
My name is Lalit Mohan Joshi. I'm a writer and filmmaker. I have a great regard for you, Rajivji. I've got your first book. My question is very, very pointed. You being such a veteran and you've done such a lot, have you had discussed this with the Prime Minister of India, who is himself a visionary and has been giving a great leadership for the last 10 years?
So, personal, private conversations I don't want to discuss because it compromises. It's not fair. I mean, if somebody gives me their time on off camera, I should keep it private. So the answer is that I think at the highest levels, people do know these problems in India. They do know about my work. Recently, there was without mentioning me or my book, the Vice President twice mentioned. Once he was giving some memorial lecture, Rajendra Prasad memorial lecture, and once he was saying something else. In both contexts, once in Hindi and once in English, he says it's a matter of shame that certain people who are very rich are funding the world's largest institution of learning to do anti-India things. And I don't know why they're doing it, but I would like them to stop. That was exactly what we had sent a brief saying, this is what we want, action from the government. So there are voices at that level that are aware of this, and now what is in their equation and how it plays into politics and elections. And I'm not an expert on that part of it.
Thank you, Rajivji, for the wonderful analysis. My name is Shawnee. I'm from the University of Oxford that you mentioned so many times, actually. So my question is that as a member of the diaspora, a line from a recent movie has stuck with me that Sarkar inki hai, par system to hamari hai. So my question is, as a member of the diaspora who's in the stronghold of such a very openly leftist organization as Oxford University, what can we do as students, as people who don't have that much, let's say, influential contacts? What can we do to take over the system, to counter the narrative? How can we contribute?
So my foundation needs people like you. We have an intellectual Kshatriya program, and I'm mentoring them. In fact, we have 12 people who are full-time working for us in India, young people from the age of 25 to 35. And my goal is I want to train 108 such thinkers before I'm gone. I want to make them the next generation, people who continuing this kind of work. So an example of the output is this recent book, 10 Heads of Ravan. Each of the heads of Ravan, we came up with 10 serious intellectuals, are very intelligent, very hardworking, brilliant, but anti-India and anti-Hindu. And we featured them one article each. And serious research, each of them written by our team, separate team members. And we are now doing 2 more books. I can't disclose what they are, but they'll be very powerful books being done by our team. So what a student can do, and you're clearly intelligent, well-educated, and well-read person, I can tell. I would love to, if you were to write to me offline separately, Rajiv Malhotra 2007, use that particular one at Gmail, and give me your background, your offer, what you can do for us. See, it's one thing for people to say, what can we do? But then when we ask them to do it, they say, I don't have the time, I don't want to do it. Then the offer is just an emotional offer to get 5 seconds of limelight on camera.
No, for
but
sure not.
It is serious. Because when you say you can do it, I'll put it in front of a team and they will give you work to do. They'll
organizations that are back in India.
Yes.
Funding or that kind of manpower,
Yes.
that's
So
what I was wondering.
that's a very good question. Why don't
Yeah.
why don't we get the funding? The
Yeah.
answer, actually, the honest truth is we don't. I'm putting my own money for the last 30 years, and that's
Exactly.
all I do.
Yeah.
And I have
yeah.
only limited capacity, and there are luckily some other people who are like-minded who give their support.
And I just want to pick up your brain. You mentioned about the caste system in America, right? So my question is that don't you think that's a straightforward case that people want to go to the coveted position, either it's a boardroom or the power position? I haven't seen anybody saying that I want to become a cleaner, give me 50% reservation there. Or I want to become a plumber, give me 50% reservation there. So why don't you think it's a straightforward case? People want that coveted position. That's question number one. And question number two is, do you ever see an era of brown adjacent?
You see, brown adjacent will happen when the browns give themselves so much power that it'll be enviable and others will want to become brown adjacent.
My name is Manoj Verma and I'm from IT background. My question is, as you said, nobody will put his neck out, whether it's ministers or politicians or corporate. At the same time, we have the richest temples in India. So why they can't put together a research center and we start all those research from there, which will not be controlled by anyone?
So these are good ideas. Obviously, we've thought of them and we go around asking the temples. We ask the big gurus to do it. Even here in this country, why go to India? BAPS is one of the richest temples. So we've gone to BAPS. They like me. They like me to come and give a talk. Okay, and they respect me. And I knew Pramukh Swami, the previous one, the head. So we're fond of each other. We support each other. I'm helping them in their legal issue. They have a problem in the US. Somebody fighting case against them. So I'm helping. We are friends at that level. But they have such deep pockets. And they keep building temples that are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars each. But there is no think tank. There is no research center for this. I mean, I cannot make their policy. But at some point, they have to realize the attacks against them that they're now getting, very serious attacks, are from the same people I've named in the book. In the book, I have named some people in the United States. Same people are now fighting against BAPS. So at some point, they have to say that instead of just defending, we also have to do proactive. We have to fund research and we have to identify people before it's too late. And we have to prevent them from doing all this by being proactive and coming up with counter arguments. They have to now come up with that themselves. I mean, they're very intelligent people and they're, they got deep pockets. I would love to have such people supporting us.
Big fan. Just a quick question on the address you had today. You started off saying that, you somewhere started saying you feel for America. As an American citizen, you should feel. I mean, you started talking about the decline in America, American values or American lifestyle or the dominance of America. But towards the end, you kind of, when it came to the political dominance or the industrial dominance of America, you kind of sounded a little bit of, I don't want to say anti-America, but more of pro-India. I mean, is that a kind of a dichotomy in the way you see America?
I don't think there's a contradiction there. I mean, I love America as you look at America is so innovative. In the last 100 years, all the major industries they developed, from automobiles to aerospace to computers to internet to all the kind of stuff. Every one industry after another. America is not making companies, but making industries, whole industries. And even future, whatever you see right now, many of those industries America is pioneering. So I respect that. I'm a technocrat. I'm a meritocratic person. I'm a physicist and a computer scientist. I believe in these things. And America has been a great place for me as a person who's a nobody. I have no contact friend. There weren't any Indians when I went there. There were very few. The town I went to, there were like 6 Indians, the whole place, and they had nothing to do with me. So it's all self-made. And for a person like me, brown-skinned person, different religion, just on merit, I can get ahead. And nobody stopped me. And I never needed anybody's quota or reference letter or this or that. I just went on my own. So that's what I like about America. So you have to understand why I like America. It's a land of meritocracy and a land where anyone can be self-made. That is fantastic. So obviously, I have reasons to like it. But I can at the same time also be critical. I'm very critical that I think that their policy on India is wrong. They all previously it was for Pakistan. Then they were mixed up trying to think that if we help China become rich, they will become our friend, which is kind of a stupid thing. And even now, sometimes it's one president or another president, they keep getting mixed up on India. And now they need India in the Quad. Okay, India is necessary in the Quad. Without India, the Quad won't work. There'll be no Indo-Pacific strategy of America without India. That's very clear. So they are out of necessity doing it. But I'm very upset that they have not been able to put India higher on the scale of their priorities, okay, and get rid of all this nonsense. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which reports to the U.S. Congress, and which is created by Bill Clinton. At his time, he created it. That it goes on penalizing India as some kind of a country that does not respect religious freedom. What nonsense is that? And so I also got problems with them. So on the one hand, there is a meritocracy, which is made America great. Okay, and now I'm worried that they may lose out to China. And China will be a far worse country for us, honestly. If America lost out to China, we'll be in serious trouble, all of us. So, on the other hand, I'm also upset at many American policies. So, what's wrong? Why can't you, similarly towards India, you can have a great love for all kind of great things and the ancient rishis and our Bharat and all that, and also say, look at these modern gurus, they're not living up to their requirement, leadership, look at these billionaires. What's wrong with having a complex posture towards a major country, a major entity like United States? You can't be all liking it or all hating it. You have to be very clear about these things I like and these things I don't. Similarly with India. I mean, there are so many policies like NEP, I think is wrong. They opened the floodgates to liberal arts education and invited all these Western universities there. But I'm totally, my whole life is driven by, my life's meaning is based on the Vedic civilization, and that is all I live for from the time I was young till now, and that is how I will continue living. So that is how solidly Bharatiya I am. But at the same time, I also criticize many policies. There is no contradiction here.
We in UK had riots in Leicester recently, and Pakistan ISI is always involved in running anti-India element in UK, America, and many other countries. Now, what would you suggest to us as a diaspora, Indian diaspora, to do? What can we do more than what we are doing, please?
So, if it's ISI, that's a government thing, and there is a role for the government to do which I can't and you can't. Government has to do something, because we can't take on ISI. I mean, that's an instrument of state, of a certain nation state. We can't take it on as ordinary people. So there is a state level, Indian nation state has to do certain things, which I'm sure they have to think about. I don't know. What can we do as individuals is we have to continue, we have to produce good scholarship. See, I feel that we need to marry the scholarship with the activists. Right now, this is an important point. Right now, we have few people producing real, original, good scholarship that can be changing the paradigm. And a lot of people who are activists, and they are disconnected from the scholarship. They're going out on their own, doing their own thing. We do not have this mechanism to bring scholars and activists together and have them work together and have the government support all this. Whether it is this party or that party, as long as they are pro-Indian civilization, regardless of party, they should support this kind of a thing. So, and then we need to take all this into the film industry, make movies out of it. We need to put it into the education system. So there's a lot of work like that which common people like us can do. If you are a sincere person with energy and resources and need to know what do I do with it, we'll give you work. We have no shortage of work.
Thank you, Amish ji. I'll request you please have a seat. I will now request Sushil ji, key member of the FISI team, to come on the stage and deliver the vote of thanks, please.
How many of you would dream to retire at the age of 44? We all would, right? But how many are successful in doing that? we have that person amongst us today who managed to do that. And instead of going on luxury yachts, expensive holidays, and buying islands, he decided to go on the battleground. We think and assume that the battles are now over. But as we have just heard Rajiv ji, that is far from truth. Rajiv ji is one such fighter who is fighting the battles for us. I know you probably cannot picturize him with swords and shields, riding on a horse, giving war cries. But believe me, he is indeed doing that. However, the battles that I'm talking about are the battles of narratives and systematic targeting of the oldest civilization on this planet, and that is the Bharatiya civilization. These are the intellectual battles, and he is indeed a knight in the shining armor of knowledge, and in this process, he has produced some stellar astras. Just like Brahmastras, he too has produced Rajivastras. 12 of them. Breaking India 1.0, Being Different, Academic Hinduphobia, Indra's Net, Battle for Sanskrit, Sanskrit Non-Translatables, AI and the Future of Power, The Power of Machines, The Battle for IITs, 10 Heads of Ravana, Varna Jati Caste, and of course, the snakes in Ganga. Now it is up to us as to how we master these Rajivastras and use it against the nebulous nexus that is constantly working to dismantle our civilization. So he's given us a brief overview about a very small book of only 812 pages, especially around wokeism, grievances. I just need the glasses, bald and glasses. I think they'll be able to form a big grievance class, Rajivji. And I think quite a few of us probably will be in that category very soon. So thank you, Rajivji, for coming here on the FISI platform and guiding us through the details of your latest book and also answering some of the burning questions that we have. So, Bhaiyo and Behno, let's give a very warm and loud round of applause for Rajivji.
People